Because of y'all's guidance. I mean, yes, I understand they're in that predicament right now, but it's interesting because yeah, that's the key. And that guy just found in this moment. Two minutes. And then that mayor was. Huh. Let me take this back to my legal. Here.
Ready? All right, let's call the Blanco County Commissioners Court to order this Monday, July 29th, 2024. Ask Ms. Mercer to call the roll.
Judge Bright,
Here.
Commissioner Weir,
Here.
Commissioner Eager,
Here.
Commissioner Lee,
Here.
Commissioner White.
Here. Please join us in the pledges. I pledge
to the flag of the United States and to the republic which stands one and one. Please remain standing for the invocation. Lord, today is Monday. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow is unknown. All we have is today. May we all be thankful for this blessing of this new day. Lord, guide and direct our decisions as they may come in your favor. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I'm gonna skip item 1 for the moment, which was actually the main reason that that we started out with this meeting. And it's because we still don't have numbers. So Connie's watching her email to see if we're getting a number. I don't know what to tell you. We've given them till now, and they understand we're in meetings. And last time we met, Mr. Leisman was saying that in order to for him to be able to approve an agreement with the contractor, we needed to know some things. So that's where we are. We don't know the things yet. Call for another special meeting, or we just put it on a regular agenda and we just don't go as fast. I just don't know the answer yet. But maybe something will happen between now and the end of this meeting. So before we talk about the budget in item 2, I want to just quickly cover item 3. You remember last meeting, Judge Riley submitted his request, his not request, his resignation, basically, effective August 27th. And I just put this on an agenda item so that it could be announced open in the public to be picked up by whoever, and for the commissioners' benefit to ensure that we have an open applicant process in order to appoint someone. Speaking of appointing someone, if Judge Riley officially retires on the 27th, our last meeting is our last meeting in August, that is. Is the 27th. So did he make it effective the 29th, 27th?
27.
Okay.
So we could appoint somebody on that meeting.
Yes, we could. If that is everyone's desire, then I think we should tell people that they need to get their applications in probably by the end of the 16th, so that the court can have time to digest applications to make a decision on the 27th. Does that seem fair? Anybody object? So for the public consumption, if you have an interest in being the JP4 appointee coming up, an application needs to be submitted to our office by August 16th, please. Okay. I don't know if there's any action to take unless somebody has something else to talk about on this. I will mention that we have an applicant. He's already submitted basically an application, and he is in the back of the room, Mr. Hernandez. And I believe he was here last time and showed an interest and submitted his application then. Anything to report?
There should be. Thank you, good. Please call me back. Trying to get.
Okay. So let's move to the budget for the moment. And there's a page that has the changes that Connie made. There's some notes to talk about with you. The first 2 or 3, first 2 are pretty obvious. The numbers that Commissioner Leesman gave us to change. The flood infrastructure grant, is that something that you personally working?
Doucette is personally working. We did we approved the motion for them to proceed with making application, and then I think that I talked to him the other day, and supposedly he believes that the award will be posted in September, whether or not who gets what grant.
And
but he also said it'd be a multi-year, at least a 2-year time frame.
but so we don't know that we're going to get this grant yet.
No, sir.
but you're wanting to put this in budgeted revenue.
Budgeted revenue and expenditures for the 62.5
Which is our,
portion.
don't get it.
If we don't get it, then we just don't, I mean.
Well, I mean, that number
Affect your
affected the,
tax rate.
well, not the rate so much, but it affected the transfer and affected just the overall budget, the way it looks. So I'm just curious. I wasn't quite clear.
The assumption was, we were ranked pretty high on the number so far. That's what I was told.
Guess we're gonna kind of bet on it then. Okay, and then asked me to include my salary increases and the overtime, and we deleted the IT director, and I don't know what endurance is.
Sorry, should say insurance.
That means lowering it by one employee. Okay, all right, okay. Then you'll see the SRO officers, and you'll see what the starting salary is there, and that's a bigger discussion that we need to have in just a second. But to finish out this page, there's the comp payout that SWIP thinks is going to have to happen anymore, or at least for now. And then that flood infrastructure. Remind me of that.
Yes.
That's our function. Okay, so on the budget, late last week, I had a conversation with Commissioner Riley, and it caused me to do some thinking, and I have one or two things I want to file on Wednesday. The original proposal that I rolled out to you, it's a couple of meetings, 0.5% COLA across the board. And then there's a second option, and it's an 8% COLA to the entire salary chart. So it's 8%, moving the minimum is 8%, it's 8%, and the max is 8%. What this does is puts us a little closer to what the sheriff was looking for. I think 57 actually said, my memory was at the last meeting, 57 would have been acceptable. And 56,945 or whatever it is pretty close to 57. 56,964. So that helps the sheriff, but it wasn't all about the sheriff. I'm proposing the entire salary page and all of the grades, the 8%. This affects several people. And you might need Connie to help me with the chart because it's kind of complicated. But what my proposal is that anybody who would not be affected by moving the minimum salary is getting 4.5% cost of living adjustment. Anybody that is affected by moving the minimum salary gets the minimum salary. So there are a couple people who are sitting at the minimum right now, and that means that effectively they'll get an 8% raise. But they're at the very low end of things, and this would be the open spots in the sheriff's office. There may be a sheriff's deputy, but I'm not sure. It would be, do you have that page that has all the people it affects? Because it affects some road workers. Yes. Right.
Maybe it is that.
Commissioner Weir, Commissioner Eager, did you get all that?
Yes. Yes, sir.
There's one near the bottom that the the clerk in the commission, in the JP Court one, he's had her at a 104, which is really not, that's not what the court clerk's classification is. The court clerk's classification is 108. If you look down the page two spaces. But in speaking with Judge Broadbeck, he's wholeheartedly in favor of her being upgraded and is open to starting out at a 1.6. Talk about it next year. But that brings that particular individual with a pretty substantial increase, but she has proven to be worth it, I think is the best way to say it. So the blue people, and on the back, I think is something for commissioners to think about. The blue lines are people who, because of the bottom of the gray. The overall effect on the budget was not as significant as I'm afraid it might be, but then when we factored in this flood infrastructure grant that wasn't there before, the line item transfer actually reduced some. There's a couple of things to talk about, but so I'm gonna let that concept soak a little bit. Maybe think of what your questions are. In the meantime, when we did the salary study, what was supposed to have come out of it is people to get raises along the range of salaries for a particular grade. There should be documentation and written justification. And I had two commissioners come into me last week, and it wasn't the reason for the talk, but each of them said in unsolicited that they thought that the clerk for the board didn't get paid enough. So I took it upon myself to do a performance review, and she has them to pass out to you. Okay. So, oh, they already have, okay. And I did the best to fill it out for both purposes, because she's a coordinator for me in legal world, and she's the clerk for commissioner's court in the commissioner court world. And those are my estimations of how she is doing, and my justification for any kind of a raise. But I don't have any kind of number in mind. So I don't even have a process in mind. I would like your input on the idea of raise based on that performance review. But don't everybody speak at once.
So Judge, I guess my question is what is the protocol on doing performance reviews? And let's just talk about Road and Bridge. Okay, so if I think my guys do excellent and Tommy thinks his guys do excellent, where is that? My excellence and his excellence is two difference in some scenarios.
Well, I can't fix the fact that individuals run departments. That's true in any organization in the world that has
Right.
multi-managers. No two managers. However, the metrics are the same. if you have metrics, we don't have them because we don't have this job. I had to create one based on, and what I used was the salary study list of duties that Ms. Harrison performs. You know, I don't know if you all have a performance review document for road hands. What do you want to call it? Road.
It doesn't matter.
And if you did, you should have the same one for precinct 1, it's precinct 4, the other precincts. That's where the uniformity comes from, if it's the same document that you're working on. There may be differences in how a manager sees an employee, but it's still the same job description that you're working with. And to the first part about protocol, I think it's pretty traditional, it's pretty traditional, that especially at the lower levels of job functions, a year review is pretty standard that I've ever experienced. And that's not necessarily so as you get higher up in the organization. Seen them go 3 years and longer. Generally speaking, an annual performance reviews is not unexpected, and you can kind of see the logic to that when, if you need a review in order to justify any kind of an increase for somebody, or anything else for that matter, justify terminating somebody, and the budget comes around annually, then an annual review seems like a logical thing to do.
Where did these three, needs improvement, satisfactory, and do we have that on the books, or?
No,
There's a long ways between satisfactory and exemption.
there is, you can have 5, you're right. Those were quickly done. We don't have, I don't think the salary study did that. Where they came from
Is you, okay. Well, in mine, I think we should have a good in there, because exemplary means you have exceeded beyond.
that's right. In fact, that should have been the actual wording, is exceeds expectations.
Yeah.
But if you have a pre-printed review and you hand that out to all departments, each department head can interpret those differently. I mean, what's good. Each one of them can look at it, evaluate that same template, and come up with a different reason for that employee to be exemplary.
Now, you may have an employee that you think is better than good, exemplary, and it's good.
Now, we've had years to discuss the salary study and how to do these things. And now for this discussion to get hijacked into well, how do we do performance reviews? It's not the object of this particular item. You want to talk about it, it's your prerogative, but this is my performance review, and I'm sticking with it. And if you want to talk about how they're either different or should be different, that's fine, but that's not going to get us anywhere today, because
Where we're headed, yes, sir.
I mean, I was hoping for input on whether or not you think this person merits a raise.
Yes.
I'll give my input. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. And the reason I do is because she has the ability to work across departments and interact and work with and support every other department in the county just about. So it's not just within that, like we have with Road and Bridge, our guys work within that. They might work in other road and bridge departments and work with them. But Ms. Harrison has the ability to work across departments and very effectively and timely too. So we're throwing stuff at her on an hourly basis, and then she has a regular job and then all the other stuff coming in. I know she has recently gotten some really good help, but there's still plenty to do, and that's why I'm supportive of it.
Now, now I'll throw you the curve. And because one, I don't have a number in mind and I didn't put a number down and I was hoping for an open discussion and there is an executive session in the event that anybody wanted to do it. I don't really have a problem with airing this publicly, but anytime anybody wants to go into executive session, just say the word. But while we're at it, we'll put this one aside for the moment. We have, but let me just say that it was to my detriment, my fault, is I'm laying this out on you all 2 days before I file some kind of proposed budget and nearly 2 months since we asked for departments to submit their proposed budget. So I probably should have asked you all this 2 months ago, honestly. And speaking of which, do you have the other written requests? We have some written requests from another department to raise individuals that were submitted last
I received them in a box.
you. There are 4 raises proposed. And this is the entire documentation that I have.
And I guess that's kind of where I was trying to go to originally, is there a type of panel that could be put together that would look at all these proposals? You know, because let's just say Josh says his person is excellent and Patrick says his is excellent and they don't do the same thing. I mean, it's the same position, but one of them clearly outperforms the other. You know, Josh think, you know, and I understand that, and that's where I'm, you know, is there an outside person that looks into this or is it just that supervisor? I mean, obviously.
Today it's just that supervisor, but my answer to your question, my reaction to your question is, the idea of putting together another panel, an intermediary panel between it all disturbs me as more bureaucracy. That's what I think the commissioners court, I consider the commissioners court that panel. So I'm not used to, you know, this county government is pretty different than everything I've ever seen. And commissioners courts are way more involved in salary matters individually than I've ever seen, where you put people's salaries down on a piece of paper and you put their name on it. So I don't know. I don't much care for the idea of a committee to decide if Constable Fisher and Constable Busey are saying the same thing or not. I think the forms ought to be such that they're close, but and it's not my fault that somebody decides to work for Busey or somebody decides to work for Fisher. That's a choice you make when you go to work for somebody. And you know, when Ms. Mercer goes to work for Laura, that's the choice she makes, and how Laura grades people is going to be different than how I grade people. And if I understood your question, if you're asking for a committee to decide to evaluate Laura's evaluations and my evaluations and Celia's evaluations, I don't much care for that idea, but it's an idea.
Well, I mean, okay, I guess so I walk in here today to sit down to a budget meeting and I get proposed basically one whole office should get more than what you recommended.
Which is the same thing I got 3 days.
Right, I know. So how do I make that justification on the spot?
I don't know. I don't, but I can't without more than that. I don't know how those numbers are even arrived at.
Right.
And I don't know, I don't have any performance measure I don't even have a supervisor saying this person has done this and this and this way beyond expectations. No, it's not on that. There's one line on the page. Yeah. So I can't. I'm just bringing it to you because I can't, what's the alternative? Not bring it to you?
No, I agree with you. I'm just, I'm kind of in a pickle here, it seems like.
I do, I think that between two sitting here and the auditor and the people that conducted the study, I think that the notion got out there to supervisors that you were supposed to do the best reviews. It hasn't seemed to take. Anyway, so as far as forego, especially since one of them is for the official. I needed to know if you all are wildly in favor of it, because if you are, I'll go ahead and put it in my file. And if you're not wildly in favor of it, I'm not going to put it in my file.
This is where we get open by discussing this. What is this right here?
But how do we not discuss? Well,
The time's passed.
I think that's a good way to look at it. We had a workshop.
It's unfortunate. That. I think,
But if you say that, then that's the same thing to that.
I know.
And the time hasn't passed until adopted the final order.
Last proposal was 4.5 across the board. This proposal is 4.5 for most, but not all. There are some that will get more.
Well, this was in the Friday, and that's the way. And the last of the 6% was exemplary, was above and beyond, beyond the standard.
I get that. I get that, but that. It depends on what you're calling that, because you're saying 2% to a person that meets that's satisfactory. Well, that's cost of living, but if you're saying 6% for a person who's exemplary, their cost of living didn't change for somebody just because they're a better employee. Cost of living is the cost.
Well, this,
that other 10% has to be something else.
This is above and beyond the standard raise that we would get at the end of the, at the new budget time.
Right. And as long as that's made clear.
It doesn't have to be 6%, it could be 5%. And that's what I'd work with before.
Judge, the difference I see between the one that was just handed to us with the tax collector's office, what you're asking to do in the performance reviews is you gave us a performance review. On these other, on these other employees, they're just asked for the merit increase without an explanation.
There's no justification.
So I would actually like to know what justifies that. And additional hours, additional whatever that justifies that increase. Which you have stated in yours.
Well, most anybody would want to know that.
So I'm curious about this.
I can't answer any of those questions. We got it on Friday and this is what we got. And the communication line is not super. But back to the bigger issue. So this idea of moving the minimums is not really Commissioner Riley's, but it came out of the conversation with him. It's sort of a light bulb that came on for me. I don't even know how he feels about it.
As far as where you go, across the board, 80.
Well, I wouldn't say it's across the board. But it affects some people. It affects the people in blue.
Right.
Okay, so I don't understand.
Okay.
So look at on the back page of the regular person, people, regular employees, not sheriff's office. Just look at, Neese and Jones.
Jones. Oh, there he is, okay.
So current salary is the same. Neese and Jones,
Is that Canasi or?
however you want to say it, Canasi, Neese, whatever you want to call
Yep, and the reason Canasi isn't in the blue is because it's his
it. Second year.
second year, so he's being pushed far above the
Okay, so
base.
then the proposed is 47,370 for him. It's 47,261 for somebody that's been here a year longer. How does that work? This says 3 years, and this one says 2 years. Years of service. He was hired at a what? So Jones is hired at a lower rate. So he's been here for 3 years. He's gonna make less money than somebody that's been here for 2 years.
He does now.
No, right now, the salary obviously is the same, 43,760.
But let me
Because
just
we
say,
got him up to minimum salary.
but he's about to because I don't know why Canasi's getting a 2 year.
Yeah. 2 year, 3,175.
Over 4 years, you'll get a 2 year or 2% increase where Canadian won't. But
So for 1 year, you just gotta say sorry that you got voted in on, or you got hired on the wrong year.
I hear you. I hear you.
Aaron,
Yeah, Eagle.
he'll be making less as well. It's just, that doesn't,
Makes sense.
no. Bad one.
All right, so. Yeah, you all understand that it's morale move you're talking about. As it stands, they all are making 43,760. They all will get 1969 with a 4.5% increase, which was what was proposed earlier. Period. That in the story, that's it. Now, Canasi, none of the others that are listed there, Canasi will 2 year increase anyway of 1641. He will make more, forget the 8%, forget the moving the bottom line. he will make leaders anyway. It's gonna happen, whether it's a bad morale increase. If it's a bad morale move, it's a bad morale move because of our longevity bumps at 2 and 4 years. Not because of my 8% proposal. Because actually, Canasi is the one that doesn't benefit from the 8% proposal, but the other 5 do. Because in fact, at the 4.5% raise, people like the other 5 will only be getting less than 45,760. And Canasi will still be getting 47,370. So you can't really blame that on you. You can say,
No, I see what you're saying.
yeah, you can't really blame that on the 8%. It's wacky because it's wacky. But what it does do is, speaking to just the sheriff's issue, is it puts his starting salary at 56,964, and he can take his SB 22 money and he can make it competitive with others. So in the meeting that you and I were in this morning, I sat next to the Burnett County auditor and I asked her face to face, straight up, what is the starting salary for a Burnett County sheriff's deputy today? And it's 62 and some change, somewhere below 63. But it's 62 something today. And so that's about 10,000 more than we pay today. And I said, what are you doing anything? And their plan is to pay a 4% cost of living adjustment to all Burnett County employees and 2% more. I may not have heard it correctly, but it seemed like she was saying 2% more for law enforcement, which would be a 6% increase. So everybody has their way of doing it. Everybody's doing it differently, but today we're pretty much under Burnett County, and I don't know about you, but one of the natural responses is, well, Burnett County is considerably larger than this. Considerably. And has a bigger budget. So my 8% just moves us close.
So if you was
Oh,
to,
and by the way, that 62 did not include, I asked this pointed question to be sure. That 62 something, 62 and change that they're paying does not include the SB 22 money. And I don't know what exactly they're doing with their SB 22 money in terms of salaries, because it's complicated. So if I was to,
so if this proposal with the highlighted colors, what is that? What's the increase? How much is that increase?
I think he means what is the effect of blues?
Okay, what is the effect of from where we're at 4.5 to this? What if you did a split of 8% across the board then? What's the difference? How much difference?
We didn't run that. And 8% across the board would be a lot. Not necessarily a lot, I mean, maybe a lot of money, but it would also be, if we want to talk about not being like the bigger counties that surround us, that we should be smaller. Well, that would be a big cost of living adjustment compared to anybody, any of our neighbors. Anything yet from the contractor? Well, what about you two on this then? I've gotten pretty clear. The point of this was to get a message from y'all, how you feel about the idea of raising the bottoms and not everybody 8%. And I've got a pretty clear message that I think it's not favorable over here. So what do y'all think?
Guys,
No, I'm just trying to find out how they feel about my proposal. 8% for the minimums and 4.5% for cost of living for anybody that doesn't fall in that minimums.
Yeah, Judge, I mean, you're always going to cut, there's somebody that's gonna feel like they've been cut short on this thing. Here, how you mix it. Do that to some people, but we keep stirring the pot to try to figure out how it fits everybody. I don't think you're gonna get there. There's a point there where you basically have well, there's a time frame where you basically have to come up with something, and this one here sounds to be the best that I've heard so far.
I'll even shoot an arrow into it for you. The sheriff got up here, we had this spirited discussion about competitiveness, marketability, et cetera, et cetera. How they're different in terms of their market. And I'm weary of that. But you could say that my proposal to move the entire page is overkill, and you just do it for the sheriff's office. They're the only ones. If we move them to 56,960 next year, but they're a little more competitive than they were this year. And it's a little less heartburn and pain when the Senate Bill 22 money runs out and we have to figure out how to compensate deputies without Senate Bill 22. So that's my biggest reason for you to get a little closer, trying to throw away the bar. But I'm just of the philosophy that I'm just not about singling them out anymore. So, and frankly, you all don't easiest of times with road hands either. So seems to me, and that's just one group. There's lots of groups in here. It's just one group. So it seems to me like raising the minimums helps us compete in the marketplace all the way around. That's just how I look at it. But the arrow you can shoot is that you might only need to be dealing with the sheriff's department, or you might want to not talk about anybody.
the longer you wait, the longer the gap's gonna grow, and when you try to catch up, then it's gonna be harder every year that goes by. And I understand what Chris was saying, but at the end of the day, no matter what we do, somebody's gonna take those numbers, move them around, and figure out how they got less. if they would dig that deep into it. I like your numbers.
Um, After July 31st, we'll meet again and you all will have chances to discuss a little on this. But I would rather submit something with a chance as opposed to something that's just a placeholder.
Or are you asking for a motion on this one?
No.
No.
Just your thoughts of what I should file.
So I guess a question for you or for the group. In the category of 106. You know, as the sheriff clearly pointed out, there's apples and oranges here. That's a big collection point for a lot of different types of people.
And we paid $50,000 for that. You're right.
So I mean, somebody that can run a motivator as opposed to election clerk, that's a big difference.
You're right. But I'm not arguing with you, but I want to think about it. I want to think about it this way. If a jailer, they're on that 106 somewhere, right? If a jailer messes up badly and you wind up having a suicide in the jail, it can be an extremely expensive proposition for the county. However, I have known since high school that a good blade man, I don't think I've heard three names mentioned. I have heard exactly three names mentioned since I was in high school in Dripping Springs of good blade men in this entire area. And they're the same three names today. So I think somebody that runs I think a good blade man is equally important.
Right. I mean. Yes.
So the fact that so that both those people are 6. Tell you about that.
You're categorizing pay grades. It's always going to be that way to some extent, or you're going to end up with 500 different pay grades. And there's going to be somewhere where somebody's in the same pay grade you are that doesn't have a job that you feel is up to the job that you have, or vice versa. But so I mean, as long as we have pay grades, there's people going to fall in there at the bottom end of that pay grade and people at the top end. Yeah. So at some point you need to either adopt it or don't, but I think there's always going to be complaints.
You know what? I think I now remember, just to clarify something. I now remember what that 2% was that the auditor in Vernon County was telling me about. It was not for law enforcement. She said it was there, so they're doing 4% COLA and 2% I forgot the word she used, but essentially it's raises. It's like merits. And I think she commented that practically everybody winds up getting it, but that's how they budget it. It's like it's 2%. It's technically variable depending on the person's performance. I guess they think most of their employees are doing pretty well. So
As does everybody.
yeah. So it's just awfully late in the game to come up with something like that. But had I known that before and fleshed that out, maybe that would have been a way to do it. But then again, I'm not sure how they administer it. Does that mean that every department gets a 2% piece of money, and does everybody just get 2%, or do they get, or Or does the treasurer give them 2%, depending on if they've got a current performance review on file that's not needs improvement?
What if you went from a 4.5 to a 6?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, what it would,
And do away with the 8.
what it would do is, like I said, you're still getting pretty far above other counties in your cost of living adjustment. One, and number two, it would not improve the starting salaries for the sheriff to more than, I think, probably, where if the 4 would do 555 and the 8 will do 57.9, then the 6 would probably be somewhere in the middle, so probably 56.5. And back to that conversation we had last time, that's too low for him to compete, says he. So that's the answer to your question of what if that is y'all's pleasure, I'll file it that way.
Trying to find a percentage that fits straight across the board.
No, he is, yes.
Okay. Because I can see where the sheriffs might be a little different from the rest of us, but
I was hoping to get away from that, but that is a point of view. Still nothing. Still nothing. Anyone? I don't know what your schedules are, and how much in position this is. I'm wondering about recessing the meeting. Time for the lunch break and also time for us to try to get some information from the contractor. But
You know, that,
so what time would you want to reconvene?
yes,
Say,
she has an answer. Other thing,
well, I feel like I don't know what else to do. If you more to say, let's hear it.
no,
I was actually thinking about it, if we recess, maybe.
Go back to 3.
Let's do that. Is 3 all right?
fine.
Let's recess until 3.